Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. Today we will continue the conversation, what you need to think about when you're trying to start a new business or a new endeavor. Starting a new business, as you remember, it's an endeavor which is going from 0 to 1. But in fact, we never actually go from 0 to 1. And this goes back to the age-old question of what came first, the chicken or the egg? I guess they're saying the egg came first because of, what is that? That means you believe in evolution. And then the people that say the chicken came first, they say that, okay, so God, he just put the chicken right there on the earth. But that doesn't really answer the question, because then it goes back to, all right, so how did God actually create that chicken? Like what were the plans that went into chicken creation? Which means that there had to be a chicken before. Otherwise, how did God create that chicken? And then, all right, so somebody says, well, God's perfect, and then God can just come up with anything that God wants. All right, but how did God become God? So what came first, the current God, or was there a God before God? And then what came before that God? So it's like there's no actual answer to this philosophical question. And all it does is, it's like when you're in the 1990s and you take your video cassette back to Blockbuster and you have to put it into that machine which rewinds things. That's it. It's just like the answer is rewind. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Rewind. All right, good. So now that we understand that the answer is rewind, then what we can do is we can start to look at historical examples of the business that you are trying to get involved with. And there's two basic questions. One is called red ocean and one is called blue ocean. Talking about this topic with someone today, she pointed out was that there aren't really any blue oceans anymore. And she wasn't talking about pollution. She was talking about it's really, really difficult for you to invent the egg. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, to some extent, yeah, like I see what you're saying, that every ocean, what, and then we gave the example of ChatGPT because, okay, so that is kind of like a blue ocean. Look, in the first year of ChatGPT, they enjoyed an incredible amount of success. But then I heard some news just a couple of days ago that there's some new model is a red ocean that is outpacing ChatGPT. What that means is that once you have somebody in a leading position, the question is, how do they maintain that leading position? And there's really fundamentally, there's two ways for them to maintain a leading position. Fundamental way number one is to maintain an extremely high level of effort. This is called competing. When you have a high level of effort and a high level of success, you are competing, according to the work of Thomas Buchholz in his book, Great Crucial Insight. The place that everybody wants to go is a high level of success, but a relatively low. When you drive up a large mountain and then your car, you have to put a lot of effort to get the car to the top of the mountain. And then when the car gently flows down the other side and you're not needing to use gas, but the car is still going fast, level of effort. Everybody wants to coast. Everybody wants to have a huge amount of wealth and a huge amount of resources and sit on a beach. Well, actually, it's not really true. Not everybody wants to do that. In fact, what you find is when people retire, then like a lot of people, they just die really fast after that because they don't have purpose. They're just sitting around their house and then they're suddenly like, I'm old. And what do I do when I'm old? And then they're gone. This is like, I guess you could look at that in terms of business. So if you have a business and you spend all that time and effort to grow and to make it competitive, and then you find some way to automate that business, and then slowly you're reducing the level of effort, meaning you don't have to have the same level of one type of input. Because remember, to get outputs, you have to have input. But if you automate those inputs, then you're going to get some kind of output without having to put in that huge amount of these other types of efforts, which sometimes it means our time and our emotion and our grit. You're cruising, you're coasting. So every ocean is a red ocean. And certainly ChatGPT is no longer in blue waters. Now what? We want to start a new business, and what is that business going to be based on? Well, we want to build a business which is a low level of effort and a high level of success. So, well, and we know that we're in red ocean territory. And I think that there are basically two options there. The next area, so this is called state styles. If we go to then what we're trying to see, we're still in the input section. Remember, there's two main things when we talk about input, and inputs are level of effort, level of success. That's the checklist called state drive. And then we're looking at different ways of developing processes, and that checklist is called state styles. So in this case, we're primarily looking at state styles. Why? Because there's two essential ideas here. And one idea is called tentative, and the other is called embedded. If we look at tentative, then this is really the essence of competition. It's called A/B testing. And B is the competition. Obviously, in your own business, if you want to remain on top, you want to be the market leader, that means you have to have, like we were talking about, a high level of effort and a high level of success. How do you get that? Then over time, you're going to develop a competitive advantage. You're going to develop dominance in that hierarchy. But then there are also other competitors who are also developing some kind of dominance, or they're also developing some kind of competitive advantage. And sometimes the person in second place has a little more grit and a little more purpose and a little more fire under their tushy tush. Just like we're seeing in the case with some developing countries who were under the thumb of the American empire for 20, 30 years. And now they're like, hey, we've really been working hard here and we're ready to strike back. The question is, how well have they been able to develop the competitive edge? Do they have some competitive advantage? Do they have access to some kind of special resources? How well have they been able to climb the dominance hierarchy? And right now we're in the middle of what some people believe are the pains of the birth of a multipolar world. I mean, that could bring some new advantages where the person who's on top, the person in the leading position, may have to become more competitive, which means they may have to delete some of the areas in their culture or in their economy that is wasting resources. So we go back to the state styles. If you're not using tentative, then we go to the area of embedded. And embedded, it's a formula. So we're trying to blend work, resources, processes with other work, people, processes in order to achieve a specific result, which means that we need to highlight what is the result that we want, and then we have to figure out how we're going to combine our resources in order to reduce the amount of resources that we're expending on these processes in order to get some kind of result. And by saving more resources and by automating processes, likely we'll be able to get a better result with fewer inputs. Yeah, that